Hey, greetings everybody. This is Mr. Beckstrom again. Today we're going to be going over Chapter 2.5, the Apothecary System. This is a system used to measure drugs in the pharmacy industry. It's not used very often anymore since they've largely gone to the metric system, but you will occasionally see stuff still in that grains, which means that you would need to convert it to the equivalent metric unit. So let's look at a couple of examples. So once again, we've already talked about this. Now the book in chapter 2-5, they complete most of their problems using proportions. I like to use the unity fractions that we've already learned about. Both will work out fine, and you can do either way that you like. But I just wanted to show you that the way that we're going to do them is with the unity fraction, but you can also set up proportions. They're done very similarly, and you should come up with the same answer regardless of which one that you use. So example 1, let's go ahead and convert 60 milligrams to grains. And you can look on page 177, example 3 for a similar problem, using proportions if you wanted to take note of the differences between the two methods. So we're going to use unity fractions, so we know that we need to start with our known quantity, which in this case is the 60 milligrams. And then next we're going to need to multiply it by a unity fraction that converts milligrams to grams. Milligrams to grains. Now remember that sometimes we can't do it just in one unity fraction. Sometimes we need several if if we have to make that connection. But in this case, we already have a conversion in the book. It is on page 176, and it goes directly from milligrams to grains. So that's exactly what we want. And remember, when we set up that unity fraction, that we're going to want the milligrams on the bottom of that, because we want to be able to cancel it out with the milligrams from our known quantity, so we can get our answer strictly in terms of the grains. So if you look here, we're going to start with our known quantity of the 60 milligrams. We know that 1 grain is equal to 60 milligrams, so we set that up as a unity fraction with our milligrams on the bottom, so it cancels out with our known quantity milligrams, which just leaves the grains left. So our answer is 1 grain. Hey, that was an easy one, right? So luckily, we had the conversion that directly went from the milligrams to grains. We didn't have to use the multiple unity fractions here, but it's a nice conversion. All right, so let's look at the next example. This time we're going to do 3 3/4 grams to grains. So first of all, notice that we have a proper fraction here, the 3 3/4, which is a little cumbersome to work with in that form. So we have a couple of different options. We can either turn that into an improper fraction by multiplying the 3 by the denominator of 4, adding 3 to that, and then putting that all over the 4, which comes out to 15/4. 3 times 4 is 12, plus 3 is 15 over 4. Or we can convert this to a decimal, in which case all I do is take the 3 divided by 4 in my calculator. It gives me a 0.75, so I change it to 3.75. Now I like to work with decimals, just because they're a little bit easier when you're multiplying and dividing with the fractions. However, sometimes it's better to use those improper fractions, and we'll do an example of that one next. And I'll use the improper fractions when I get something that has a repeating decimal, like a 0.6666 that goes on forever, or a 0.3333 that goes on forever. In those cases, since we're dealing with exact measurements, it's really important to use the improper fraction in that case. All right, so let's go ahead and set this up here. So we start with our known quantity of 3.75 grams. We know that according to our table on page 176, that 1 gram is equal to 15 grains. So we set up our unity fraction, once again putting the grams on the bottom so they cancel out with the grams from our known quantity. Then we just multiply those together. The 3.75 times 15 gives us 56.25, or we can convert that into the proper fraction form of the 56 1/4. To do that, I just take that 25 here, put it over 100. That reduces down to 1/4. 25 over 100 is 1/4. And I get my answer of 56 1/4 grams. Excuse me, grains. All right, and we go to the next one, example 3. This time we're going to use a fraction that has a repeating decimal. So convert, it's listed as grains 3 2/3. That's the same thing as 3 2/3 grains to milligrams. So grains to milligrams. So we're going to need to convert again the 3 2/3. This time, since it's going to be a repeating decimal, we would have to use an approximation of 3.67, which is not the exact amount. That's just rounded to the nearest hundredth place. So in this case, I'd probably feel more comfortable, especially since we're talking about medications or drugs, that we get an exact conversion. So I'm going to multiply that 3 by this 3 here, add 2, which gives me 11, put that all over our denominator of 3 to convert that to our improper fraction. And we're going to use that. So I start with the 11/3 grains. I'm going to, my unity fraction from, this is on page 177, tells me that 1 grain is equal to 60 milligrams. Excuse me, that's on page 176 still. So we set up our unity fractions, making sure to keep the grains on the bottom so it cancels out with our grains from our known quantity. And then in this case, I just multiply the tops together. So 11 times 60 is 660 over 3 times 1, which is 3. And if you divide that out, you'll get 220 milligrams. And that's it. There's not a whole lot of examples or your turns in this section. The homework problems that I assigned were all ones that I created, so they probably won't have the help features with those. But there's not a lot to this section. It's pretty much just doing either these unity fractions or the proportions like they do in the book. So thank you. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email or give me a call. I'm here all week. All right. Thank you and have a great day.